Hello, everyone. Welcome to KTAL News Now. I'm your host, Anthony Mocklin, and today is Friday. We have made it to the end of the week, and we're going to be diving into a lot of different topics today revolving the weather forecast for this weekend, as well as some local, national, and entertainment news that you can look forward to. And let's start off with the weather and hear from KTAL's Josh Marces, who expects a very hot weekend heading into the 4th of July weekend next week as well.
This is your Friday forecast update. Happy Friday, feeling like summer yesterday with most of the rain drying up on us, and we have just a few sneaky rain showers this morning, but we'll dry out very quickly right after sunrise here, and we are headed for more hot weather this afternoon. Kind of our typical summer heat. We don't have a heat advisory today, but warm and humid, breezy today as well. We'll have a south wind gusting to about 20 miles per hour. So the rain that's out there this morning just kind of left over of what's kind of lingering from some storms to our northwest last night. Honestly, most of this probably going to dry up before it reaches the ground here, so really don't think we'll see much in the way of accumulating rain, but just a very slight chance of rain through about 9 a.m. this morning, and then we'll dry out pretty quickly here and just be left with those partly cloudy conditions today. Everybody is in the 70s, so mid to upper 70s, pretty warm start here. We are going to climb into the low to mid 90s today. Average high is about 92 to 94 degrees, just depending on where you're located here, so certainly a warm day, but nothing too out of the ordinary for late June for us. So we'll wind up mostly sunny to partly cloudy this afternoon, about 94 for Texarkana. Humidity is high enough that our heat index will climb above 100. It should feel pretty comparable to the warm temperatures we had yesterday. Again, 105 is our trigger for the heat advisory. We may not get there on Saturday, but I think completely possible we'll get there by the end of the weekend. So we'll get to that weekend forecast here in just a moment. You can see on Robinson, if Futurecast any rain will dry up very quickly. Clouds would be a blessing for us if they can hang on as long as possible here, but I do think those will probably thin out fairly quickly as well. So just looking at those partly cloudy conditions as we go through the afternoon hours today, and expecting we will have dry weather this weekend. So if you're looking to do some things outside or some work in the yard, we'll have morning temperatures there in the 70s, daytime highs. A little too warm to be out there mowing the lawn after the lunch hour over the weekend, as we'll see those temperatures into the mid 90s here. And the 7-day rainfall map not looking great for us after all the heavy rain we saw this week. Just some isolated amounts of just maybe some sprinkles out there, but I do think there is a chance we could see some rain and storms return maybe by next Wednesday and Thursday. We have high pressure building in, and that's what's going to give us some of that summer heat here through at least the middle of the week, but we may see a little relief maybe in that Wednesday to Thursday time frame, as we'll have that chance for some cooling afternoon thunderstorms.
And for more information, you can visit ktalnews.com. But in local news, this is something that started during the pandemic, but the 7th annual Feed the Cops and Fire event serves local first responders with hot meals, and they did so this week. And KTAL's Elisha Gatewood shares more.
I'm going to go in and do something different. I want to feed every cop in the city of Shreveport. It was about the 1st of June, and we did it on July 1st.
6 years later, that idea has grown into an annual Feed the Cops and Feed the Fire event, serving more than 1,000 meals this year across Shreveport and Bossier.
It's really about giving back to the police department and the fire department.
Volunteers spend 2 days delivering hot meals to police, sheriff's offices, and fire departments, making sure every shift is covered.
Fed the graveyard shift. We did, everybody all day long. And I'll say this, we got 1,000 thank yous for only 350 meals.
This year's menu was made possible by local partners. It featured barbecue, sides, and home-cooked favorites.
Great sponsors are super. Eagle Distributing, Brookshire's, Bodacious, Silver Star, Podna's has been fabulous with all their great sides and all their meats and things.
For first responders, the gesture means more than just a hot meal.
We definitely appreciate Jet Company for providing this food for us today. It's not often that we have it to happen, but we do appreciate a free meal.
A simple thank you during one of the busiest times of the year.
And all the hard work that the Shreveport Police Department does, it's really nice to have that appreciation from the community. How was the food? It was very good, excellent, very good.
Volunteers say it's all about lifting up those who put their lives on the line.
And, just saying thank you for getting out there and protecting the community and risking their lives.
And to learn more about that, you can visit ktalnews.com. But over in Stonewall, voters will head to the polls tomorrow to decide between incumbent Mayor Ken Kafka and former Mayor Randy Rogers, as Maya Alicia got to speak with Randy Rogers on why he deserves another shot.
Voters in Stonewall will head to the polls on June 27th to decide between incumbent Mayor Ken Kafka and challenger Randy Rogers, who previously served as mayor from 2018 to 2022. Now, Rogers wants his old seat back, and he says he is ready to hit the ground running.
The thing that I would do first day in office would probably be get on that tractor with a side boom mower and mow some of these ditches that aren't being kept up.
He says what sets him apart is simple: honesty and action.
When there's thunderstorms and bad storms and whatnot, I'm not hunkered down in the house. I'm out riding the streets, seeing where trees have fallen over and that sort of stuff.
His campaign outlines 4 years of accomplishments, including securing funding for a new park, tree removal projects, road repairs, and other community improvements he says Stonewall can see for itself. Since leaving office, Rogers says his time away has only made him stronger, and if he wins, he says day one he gets right to it.
I hate to sound like a bragger, but I don't think there's anything that I need to hone up on. I just need to get one more vote than my opponent so I can get back in office.
Reporting in Stonewall, Maya Alicia.
And incumbent Mayor Ken Kafka says that safety is his top priority and that he is committed to building the town of Stonewall back up. But for more information, you can find that on KTALnews.com. Now, Scyport Discovery Center in downtown Shreveport is seeing a huge boost in visitors thanks to a large amount of community support. And KTAL's Alexandra Meacham shares more.
Executive Director Diane Clark shared an update on their progress to Caddo commissioners this week, saying the center is thankful for a $15,000 grant that provided a natural history exhibit and a one-time bug bazaar. Scyport provided activities to 2,600 Caddo Parish residents and hosted 3,800 field trip visitors. Clark says Scyport's bread and butter are the school field trips, which help keep the beloved local science center afloat. She says Scyport would not exist without support from the Caddo Parish school system. She told commissioners the grant yielded a return of investment of $42,000 and collected $207,000 in general admissions.
Thank you all. This is by far the most successful event that we have had in the 8 years since we reopened. The 4-week exhibition, including the Bug Bazaar, resulted in admissions of almost 12,000 guests.
She says the grant allowed them to purchase signage and exhibit displays. They now have live collections of a Goliath bird-eater tarantula, an emperor scorpion, a bearded dragon, several spiders, and isopods, better known as roly-polies. Ms. Clark says the Bug Bazaar brought the science of bugs to life for all ages. Staff researched the materials and brought in expert guests and vendors. She encourages families to come visit Scyport during their summer break.
And to learn more about Scyport and all the events that are going on, you can visit KTALnews.com. Now, over in some national news, California has passed an anti-plastics law that is sparking outrage among the chemicals industry and environmental groups, which is pretty insane to get both sides of that on the way. And the law was initially signed by Governor Gavin Newsom in 2022, but it officially took effect last month, and it requires plastic and packaging companies to use less single-use plastic and ensure by 2032 that all packaging is either recyclable and or compostable. And this incentivizes producers of plastics to create better and more sustainable bottles, as well as containers and wrappings. And under the new rules, the plastic production has to cut single-use plastic and increase recycling rates, as well as pay $5 billion in reparations from plastic pollution. And this is being owed to the public from these plastic producers. And as of now, only 5 to 6% of plastic is ever recycled. And this rate is unlikely to change because of its low cost to make. And critics argue that the law puts a burden as well as a financial cost on manufacturers in other states who must comply to do business in California. But this argument has not held up in previous contexts. And on Monday, a coalition of 17 states sued to try and block this law, which requires businesses to register and pay fees to a private state-appointed entity called Circular Action Alliance. And the president and CEO of the National Association of Wholesaler Distributors says that no state should limit interstate commerce, let alone delegate the power to set and collect taxes to a third party outside of the scope of public scrutiny. And currently, the cost of managing packaging waste falls on local governments, taxpayers, and small businesses, while this new law aims to share that responsibility with companies that design, market, and profit from this plastic packaging. And a coalition of environmental groups say that the state's rules break the law by allowing recycling methods that create toxic waste and by letting some plastics slip through the rules entirely by changing the definition of recycling. And then also in the West, in Utah Governor Spencer Cox is restricting fireworks and declared a state of emergency today ahead of 4th of July weekend next weekend, as Utah is currently dealing with the nation's largest wildfire that is uncontained and continues growing. And the National Weather Service also issued a rare extreme weather warning as dry and windy conditions could fuel more fires across the western U.S. And the Cottonwood Fire in southern Utah, it ended up starting on Monday of this week, and it reached around nearly 111 square miles of fire today, and it was completely uncontained, according to forestry officials. And this is just one of 6 large wildfires that is burning across Utah, but this one has severely damaged the Eagle Point Ski Resort in Beaver County and forced mandatory evacuations. And towering clouds of smoke can be seen for hundreds of miles all the way to Colorado, according to some reports. And State Forester Jamie Barnes said this is unlike anything we've seen in recent memory. We're seeing fires spread farther and faster under conditions that defy historical expectations. Some of the fires we've responded to this year are behaving in ways veteran firefighters simply haven't seen before. And according to the United States Drought Monitor, much of Utah, as well as parts of Arizona and Colorado, are currently experiencing severe to extreme drought conditions. And Governor Cox, as a result, is temporarily limiting fireworks through July 5th. And the National Weather Service in Salt Lake City, for the first time in the office's history, issued a particularly dangerous situation warning in 5 counties, including the area of the Cottonwood Fire. And this is a rare alert that is usually reserved for tornado conditions and extreme fire conditions, which is defined as winds of up to 50 miles per hour and low humidity across Utah's southwest desert and central southern mountains. That is what they are currently experiencing in those areas. And the Iron Fire, which is around 70 miles southwest of Salt Lake City, ended up burning 63 square miles and was 26% contained as of this morning. But Cox's order noted that since the beginning of fire season, more than 75% of Utah's wildfires have been human-caused. And there are a bunch of red flag warnings that are going up, which is defined as the conditions including low humidity, warm temperatures, and strong winds, like we mentioned. And those are now in effect today and through Saturday for much of southeast California, southern Nevada, and northwest Arizona. And for more information on that, you can visit KTALnews.com. But over in entertainment news, Stage Center School of Performing Arts, or SOPA for short, will present their 3rd production of its 15th anniversary season, Hadestown Teen Edition, and it opens tonight for a 1-weekend run at the Marjorie Lyons Playhouse on the Centenary College campus. And for a little background about the musical, Hadestown was a winner of 8 Tony Awards, including Best Musical, Best Score, and Best Orchestrations. It also won 4 Drama Desk Awards, 6 Outer Critics Circle Awards, and including Outstanding New Broadway Musical, as well as the Drama League Award for Outstanding Production of a Musical, and a Grammy Award for Best Musical Theater Album. And this one is a folk opera that tells the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice, as well as that of King Hades and Lady Persephone. in the underworld, and it invites audiences on a hell-raising journey to the underworld and back, and is inspired by traditions of classic American folk music as well as vintage New Orleans jazz for our Louisiana viewers out there. And it opens tonight at 6 p.m. and also has a showing tomorrow night at 6 p.m. as well, June 26th and 27th. And then on Sunday, it will have a 2 p.m. showing on June 28th. And like I said, it is at the Marjorie Lyons Playhouse at Centenary College. You can get your tickets at stagecenterla.com or by calling or texting 318-218-9988. And then also in entertainment news, Angel Studios' Young Washington follows George Washington before he became the first president and details his journey as a soldier in the Revolutionary War. And to hear more about this, I got to speak with one of the screenwriters, Tom Provost. So a little bit about your background. You come from a true-to-life Los Angeles story, from waiting tables to filmmaking to teaching about screenwriting. Can you share a little bit about your journey in film?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Texas. My earliest memory as a child is sitting in a movie theater. I knew then that's what I wanted to do. And as soon as I graduated from the University of Texas, I threw everything in the car, drove to LA, knew one person, and waited tables for 12 years, and finally started working both in front and behind the camera after 12 years of waiting tables. And yeah, so now I teach acting and directing. I do screenwriting, I do some film directing, and I do acting as well. Out here, we freelance in anything we can find.
Then how did you get to come to work on the screenplay for Young Washington? Is this something that you had always wanted to do? Like, or have you always enjoyed history?
Actually, I haven't. My mom was a history professor, and it drove her crazy because when I was little, all I wanted to talk about was movies, and I had nothing to do with history. My writing partner and I went in to pitch a different project for the director, John Irwin, who's an amazing guy and a visionary. This is his passion project. He has always wanted to do the origin story of George Washington. And my mom helped me because during the pitch, I mentioned that she was an American history professor. And by the time the whole meeting was over, he hired us to help him bring his vision to the screen, which is mostly George's life. We call him George, 18 to 22. And it's an origin story about what happened to him as a youth that enabled him to become the great man that we know of as the father of our country.
And what, in your opinion, what interested you the most about telling his story as a young man, kind of still discovering who he was before he became that legendary figure?
Well, he, unlike something that many of us don't know, he was an ego-driven, very ambitious, nothing wrong with ambition, but he was very self-centered. And through an enormous amount of failure and difficulty, and even not getting the girl that he was in love with, he realized that he needed to focus outward and be a servant leader and get the attention off of himself and onto the people around him. And that's so much of what made him such a great man later in his life. We also thought it's really important to take this figure that we see on the dollar bill and on statues and have us realize he's just like us. He's someone, as we show in the movie, you can sit around and have a beer with. And when our lives get really difficult, it's very uplifting to see George Washington go through such enormous difficulty and still come out the other end.
Now, obviously, it's pretty hard to bring the story of one of the most important figures in U.S. history. Like you said, he's on the dollar bill. We usually see him every day to this day. Like, what were some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome to try to bring that story to the screen?
You know, it's interesting, as I do a lot of adaptations, and this type of story tends to be very difficult because sometimes people's lives are boring or there's too much to tell. When you look at when I first saw his life from 18 to 22, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a movie. So in staying fairly historically accurate, we really didn't have to change very much because so much went on in his life before he was the man on the pedestal, and including a great failure that he started a global war, what we know as the French and the Indian War. That was completely his fault. But he learned, as someone says in the movie, failure is God's tutor. And through his failures and through a lot of difficulty, he endured and survived. And it's very uplifting to see that, I think. And people have been very moved in the pre-screenings by the movie, I think in part because of that.
Now, you mentioned some of his character traits about how he was a self-centered guy. Are there any other traits that involved him either in the film or in real life that kind of like followed him throughout his life like that?
Yes, he was like 6'4". He was really tall, and everybody else then was short, 6'2", 6'4", and so he towered over everyone. And he was physically very imposing and could do feats of strength that no one else around him could do. And while that was made him a great soldier later on, it also set him apart. And he felt very apart from people a lot of his life. And he also he had so many experiences where he almost died and should have died and didn't. And so one of the surprising things to me is that the people around him at the time kept saying to him, a divine hand is guiding you, because there are these instances, we show them in the movie, where he should have died over and over again and he didn't.
And whenever you were doing your research and writing this film, is there anything about his life that surprised you?
Quite a few things, and I have to be careful. In these interviews at first, I was getting in trouble for giving spoilers away, and it seems silly to talk about a spoiler when it comes to history. I mean, if you see the Titanic, you know it's going down. But there are so many surprises in his youth that none of us know about. And so, here's one I'll talk about. In the movie, when it's winter and he and his best friend are on a raft in the river, what then happens, which is verbatim truth, is a miracle and defies belief. And so that's all I'm going to say, or I'll get in trouble. There's also a great scene at the end of the movie, verbatim, where some men who tried to kill him come face to face with him. And they have a really incredible, emotionally effective scene where they're talking to each other about this divine hand guiding him. Lots of surprises. And it's not a movie. You're not going to see something like a documentary on the History Channel. It is an action adventure. There's lots of romance. It is a big, bold, very entertaining film.
And when it comes to films like this, when it deals with history and historical events, there's often this perception that it can kind of feel like distant or like kind of like out there. How did you work to make this film feel like kind of relevant for modern audiences?
Well, in particular, we're hoping that young audiences really embrace it and enjoy it, because it is about young Washington. And it may be hundreds of years ago, but what he's going through, from failures at anything he tries to not getting the girl, are very relevant to any of us. I mean, I'm older than a young person, right? But I still have very difficult days. And it's wonderful to see, again, this guy you could sit down and have a beer with, who became this great man, and relate exactly to the same experiences he's going through. He may be wearing a wig, he may be wearing different clothes, he may be riding a horse, but it's the same thing you and I go through each day.
And what do you hope audiences walk away with after seeing the film?
We all say different things. I say I just hope they cry. I always cry at the end of the movie. It's a very moving movie. It's not a political film. It's just a story about his life. But we are obviously in a pretty divided time politically. And though it's not a political film, we have had people on both sides of the aisle watch this movie and be very moved by it, and remember that we are the United States of America. And so we're hoping it can unite people a little bit and look at, there's this grand experiment, they like to call it, of the US. And George himself would probably be shocked that it's still in existence and it's still working. And as flawed as we are, and as many difficult things we have in our nation's history, we are the United States of America, and it is a great experiment. And we hope on the 4th of July, this weekend of our birthday, when the movie is being released, it will help people remember the origin of our country, as well as the origin of George, and why we still stand and how we can come together.
Yeah, how important is it with, like you said, the 250th anniversary of America coming up? Like, why is this movie kind of so relevant and just timely right now?
He's a huge part of why we are who we are today. And it's important to go back and look at how this all started and what made him George Washington, the George Washington that we know. And I personally just find his story, this, again, kind of action adventure story, very moving and very uplifting. I would even say edifying. And it's just exciting to go back and think of what happened. And our director, one of the things he keeps saying is that he wants, if nothing else, he wants when people see the movie that they go home and they start reading about our history and finding out more about what happened to make the United States of America.
And how can people watch this movie if they're interested?
Yes, well, it's got a huge nationwide release July 3rd. So wherever you are in the country, you're going to be able to find a theater on July 3rd and many weeks after to see the movie. But we do encourage you to go out the first weekend. It is the 4th of July. It's a great way to celebrate it. So if you just Google Young Washington, or if you go to AMC or Regal or Cinemark or whatever your favorite theater is, you already now can start buying tickets. And we've been excited to see that a lot of theaters are starting to sell out. So it seems like a lot of people might want to see it. Hopefully so.
And for more information, you can visit KTALnews.com. But that is all the time I have for today's edition of KTAL News Now. Be sure to tune in each and every day, Monday through Friday at noon on KTALnews.com. And don't forget to stick around at 1 p.m. for The Break Room with Victoria Garnes. But for now, I'm Anthony Mocklin. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining us.